Hello and welcome to episode 210 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, the place where the small press makes one hell of a big noise. I'm Vince Hunt, creator of The Red Mouse from Mars, and I'm here with the creator of the webcomic Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
Yes, that was a nice hello, Dan. That was a good one. This week, myself and Daniel, joined by a writer responsible for titles like The Guys and Mahoneys, and the brains behind Hardline Comics, it's our pleasure to welcome Richard Carrington to the show. Hello, sir.
Hello there, you alright?
Yeah. All right, Rich.
We are well.
Good.
People would never know that we've been talking for 5 to 10 minutes. No, I've ruined it already. Do you know what else kicks ass, Dan?
The Comic House app.
It does indeed. The app and our lovely sponsors, Comic House. Yes, they are the indie comic marketplace with a difference.
I just want to say, I absolutely fucking love Comic House. It's just brilliant. I know. Obviously, you're sponsored, and every week you big them up. Which I just think it's ace. It's ace to read stuff. It's ace to have your stuff read.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
What a great app. Although this is slightly awkward, Dan, because Vanguard number 16's just knocked Mahoneys down to 4th place.
Oh no!
So I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that.
Pleased about that. Yeah.
I'll do my best to get over it, but yeah, it's a great app.
This is going to be
Mahoney's
a spicy
one was
episode.
at the top for a fair old time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It surprised me as much as anything, but it was almost got to the point where it was a little bit embarrassing to see it up there. But,
no, it's deservedly so, dude.
I imagine after this
thank
show, it'll probably jump back up to the top because you get a lot of people reading it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I went out for a few drinks and a curry the other week with a mate of mine called John, and Comic House paid for it, and obviously, none of us are paying off the mortgage or giving up work. I don't think, but it's just nice to think there's a little bit of, people reading your book and a bit of money coming in. It's lovely. Love the website so much.
Yeah,
I remember talking about Mahoney's on a previous show. It must have been quite a while ago, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a different side to like the superhero world, and you're introduced to a superhero world through a different sort of group of people. So what is like Mahoneys for those that don't know?
It's very firmly set in a recognisably sort of superhero world, but it just doesn't focus on the superheroes because, well, let's face it, I've never thought the heroes are as interesting as the bad guys. Batman's cast and Superman's cast of villains, they're way more interesting usually than the hero. So I decided to focus on that. So Mahoney's is effectively, it's set in a bar for supervillains, and there's no superheroes in it. So it's like Cheers meets something with supervillains, I guess.
I can definitely see the Cheers reference, so much so that when we saw a preview of issue 2, and it does say at Mahoney's where nobody knows your name. And I thought
because they've all got secret identities, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you look carefully in issue 1, there's a screen, there's a TV screen in the background that's got Cheers on it in one little panel. There's a little sort of Easter egg.
Are you a fan of Cheers?
Yeah, I enjoyed Cheers at the time.
You just thought this needs more supervillains. Is that what you thought when you watched it?
No, I just enjoyed the idea of supervillains hanging out, and of course, where else are you going to do that apart from a pub? So it just seemed like a natural fit. But then Mahoney's is run by a guy called Mike Mahoney, and he's a retired supervillain, and we sort of find out in issue 1 what got him out of the game. But he just opens a bar, and it's populated by these supervillains just relaxing in their downtime. But they're still quite. It's a sitcom, really. I think, as you alluded to earlier, it's a comedy, which is that sort of stickiest of wickets, really, isn't it? It's a difficult one to get right. But it seems to be going down quite well, and as I said, it did well on Comic House, and issue 2 is just complete now, hot off the presses, really.
And I think it's got a real charm to it as well. I mean, like we say, because we've read superhero comics, we're familiar with that world. You already feel comfortable as soon as you're reading it, but you haven't gone too crazy with your cast as well. When people think of something like, oh, it's going to be a bar for supervillains, let's just fill it with loads and loads and loads of characters, whereas the first issue isn't so much about that, is it? It's like, your core sort of like Mahoney himself, and
You got the new guy.
Their powers and their, there's sort of allegories. There's a guy with flame powers. There's a guy with ice powers. There's a character called She Lion, and she's got sort of feline, Wolverine-esque powers. etc. So there's nothing. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel, and the characters are sort of recognisable superhero and supervillain tropes. Really, like there's two characters called Night Cowl and Captain Superior, who are very obvious allegories of two other well-known superheroes who I won't mention in case I get sued. But
that's fairly classic, though, isn't it? I mean, for instance, something like The Boys is a classic example of taking pretty much every superhero sort of character that you read in that was a version of it. It was obviously like a completely hyper version of something we had already known. But whereas Mahoney's has a lighter sort of tone, doesn't it? Really, it's
I like to think it's a comedy at the end of the day. So hopefully there's some laughs in there. But I like to think there's plenty of heart as well because the characters all like each other. There's no sort of soap opera dramas. It's just like the cast of Cheers. You had Cliff, you had Norm, etc.
Yeah,
and you've got a bunch of people who just really are quite affectionate towards each other. And I think when I was writing it, I was binge watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and you think there's no. It's a family unit. Nobody's the victim. Yeah. Nobody's horrible to other. You've got like 8, 9, 10, whatever core cast, and there's just a lot of heart there. You just got characters interacting with each other and liking each other. And I thought I want to sort of go for that. I don't want the easy comic relief. I don't want the sort of, even though these are supervillains, I didn't want them to just be sort of shitty people, really, because you wouldn't watch Cheers if the main cast. Yeah, if everyone was an arsehole, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, people do get a sick pleasure out of following the villain as well, don't they? I think it's close.
Me personally, I've always found them more interesting since day one. I used to collect He-Man figures when I was a kid. I get all the supervillains, and I didn't give a fuck about the superheroes. Well, not superheroes, but the fucking Man at Arms and all manny faces. They can get fucked. It was all about Beastman and Trapjaw for me. They're just way more interesting.
It's like you can kind of essentially like the imagination can go a bit more wild with the kind of the bad guys, like even their design. Because you're trying to think outside the norm and get them to do something a bit more edgy and dangerous and not conform.
And you're definitely right about the comedy, and I think this gets comedy right. I mean, because it has that, it's a very not dialogue heavy, because it crackles along. But, it's characters talking to each other. When we talk about, like, superhero books and stuff, you immediately think there's going to be explosions and there's all these, like, splash pages and stuff. But this is a character. This is a character book.
Yeah.
I think it's dialogue heavy because, well, particularly issue 1 takes place pretty much just in the bar. There's a few flashbacks, a few bits and bobs. But, there's no 5 pages of dialogueless explosions and action and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And and I love that. I mean, there's still like the brilliant visual cues. I mean, I love the rules of the bar. Number 1, no credit. You're all supervillains, so by definition, you're not good for it. Which I just love stuff like that. I mean, it definitely amps up with issue 2 as well, because you introduce something that it sort of brought to mind. There was a definite. I was reminded of like things like the Tick. Were you a big like follower of like the Tick?
To be honest, no. I can see the parallels because I'm vaguely aware of the Tick, but to be honest, I never read it. It's not something that was ever on my radar. I remember the cartoon more than I remember the book. So I could never get a copy of the book.
Yeah. But the thing that brought the Tick to mind, well, only loosely to mind, was the second issue of Mahoney's. It takes it out of the bar a little bit, and it's all sort of centered around like an awards show, essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a character called the Professor, and he's your generic sort of mad scientist, and he puts a chronostasis bubble around a venue. So the bad guys, they line up outside Mahoneys, go through this portal, and they just take over a sort of swanky events venue for the night. And it's the 12th annual KP, so it's like the Oscars for supervillains. So there's categories like best superhero humiliation and best one-liners and that kind of thing. And again, it's playing genre tropes that we all know, but just sort of having a bit of fun with them, really.
This was, I must say, like this comic made me laugh out loud. Like with some of because you have the interaction between the characters in between, like the sort of the each award, but when they're announcing like the nominations for the awards, and you actually see, it's a lovely way of breaking up the issue as well. You'll have the ongoing drama sort of comedy going on, and then there'll be an award for sorry, it's the best superhero humiliation. And I mean, that page already made me laugh. Yeah, all these villains, like what they did to humiliate a superhero.
Yeah.
And immediately, I do not want to spoil any of this for you people, because I went into it cold, and I was like, this is genius. This is absolute genius. And I thought it was a great idea. That I was surprised. I thought, I haven't seen this done. You know, this seems so obvious, but I haven't seen this done before. You know,
do you know what the main influence was on issue 2? Do you ever remember Fred Hembeck did a sort of a one-off Fantastic Four, like a roast of the Fantastic Four?
No, I'm not familiar with that one. No.
And it was like a load of guest artists, but like people would come up to the podium and just roast the Fantastic Four and say how good they were, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Just remember reading that as a kid, and all the Marvel heroes were there. Oh, it's a phenomenal book.
Yeah.
But that idea of, you know, superheroes just doing a normal thing, like all hanging out, having dinner together, or going to like an award ceremony, that was always something interesting, because it's like, well, of course they would. They're not just going to fight all the time. Of course they might have a little, like Ben Grimm would have his poker nights, wouldn't he?
Yeah. And, well, certainly with like the capies and stuff, there's a definite, I mean, supervillains are also about arrogance and ego, aren't they? So they're all about winning something, and like, you know, it just made me laugh, and also good to see all the different sort of character designs as well. It's a real chance for like the art to really sort of step forward, isn't it? And like Brian Dawson,
I really like his art. I've got to say,
it's just phenomenal. I mean, to be honest, when I first started Mahoneys, it was going to be a bit darker, because I'd done 6 issues of the guys, which was a very sort of light comedy that I wrote and drew. But well, I wrote well and drew badly. But that was a straight up comedy. And then with Mahoneys, I thought, I'm going to go a bit dark. It's about supervillains. It's in a bar. I'm going to go dark. But as soon as I got working with Brian and I saw his stuff, it's so beautifully sort of animated, and it's just phenomenal. Every time I get a page through from him, and it just blows my mind. I spend literally a couple of 3 minutes, and I'm just staring at it. And the amount of detail he puts into the backgrounds, the character designs, absolutely phenomenal.
And the facial work for comedy is hugely important. The way a character will look at
really got to nail it.
Yeah, you have to nail it. And like, there's so many moments in this that are just, you know, you're already smiling at the artwork before you've even read what the sort of joke is.
Yeah, but again, like with issue 1, like we say, there's very little action. So for an artist, he might be frustrated, thinking, well, can I just draw 5 pages of fights or whatever?
Yeah.
But yeah, he sells it so amazingly, and all the little, to be quite honest, aren't in the script. The little body languages, the little gestures, the mannerisms, as you say, the facial expressions. That's all on him, because he's an amazing guy. He's a real friend. We met him online about a year ago, and he lives in the States. And we got in certainly not an argument, but it was a little bit of a discussion about who created Mahoneys. And he weirdly was trying to say, no, you're 100% the creator. And I was trying to say to him, no, I'm not having that. You're 50% the creator. So we got into this sort of battle of wills. But he's put so much into it, from character designs to sort of just creating that world of Mahoneys, that there's no two ways. It's a total 50-50 split. So he's credited in issue 2 as creator, which to my mind he absolutely is.
I mean, I can see when you have like there's all these villains lining up outside the bar to obviously get to this award. You know, this is probably, I don't know how detailed your scripts are, but you know, a couple of sentences just sort of saying that, you know, a group of supervillains are lined up outside the bar. He's definitely designed all of these individual, you know, I look at it and I kind of want to know. I mean, I see one that looks like Maul from Wildcats, which immediately makes me laugh. But Yeah, but he's taken into account like what the script says as well. Like there's a character called Helator, who's near the front of the queue, and he's hoping that they serve the ribs again, even though he's got no digestive system, which made me laugh.
But to be honest, that wasn't in the script, and Helator wasn't a character, and he's literally only in that one panel. Yeah. But Brian sends these pages through, and they're so super detailed, and he's done these character designs like. It certainly doesn't say in the script, there's a skeleton-based character. So that's all on Brian. So then I think, well, that character deserves a name. That character deserves a sort of a line of dialogue.
So with a panel like that then, is it literally, it was just the narration of all the villains lined up, and he's added bits that all of a sudden you're like, I can add some more jokes to this?
100%. We're really, there's a real synergy between us, definitely. We're both on the same page. No pun intended, but it's almost Marvel style because there is a script and the dialogue doesn't change too much, but my panel descriptions are limited. I don't really subscribe to the over detailed, Alan Moore style panel descriptions. But
I think that's best. Too.
Yeah, I think it's better for me because I've got to write less, and it's better for the artists because they've got a bit more freedom. But with somebody like Brian, whose work is just so visually stunning, I trust him. So I can write very vague panel descriptions, and I know that he's going to nail it. And then it forces me then to add little things on top because he's gone to so much detail in the background.
So there's a Kickstarter for this issue that we've obviously just read, just going live now as we speak, I guess. So we can say people that they've got the issue done.
But I guess I can see the benefit of just essentially you've got it all ready to rock and roll, and just the money comes in, pays for it, boom, out it goes.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely well worth it. There will of course be a link in the show notes, people.